Hello and good afternoon to everybody who is listening to us. Hope you are enjoying the beautiful evening or mid-afternoon today because I'm actually in České Budějovice in south of Bohemia and it's very warm here. The car is showing me 18 degrees currently and I'm sitting on the dam of the Vrbenské rybníky. It's like a big bird reservation and next to me on the pond there is like a herd of 50 wild geese. Originally, actually, I wanted to show you and share the beautiful view with you, but if you want to improvise, you have to test it first. And one occasion I didn't know is that on the next pond they are like maintaining the pond, so the pond is full of heavy machinery, and there are trucks going on the dam every 5 minutes. So the romance is gone actually. So I had cowardly run back to the car, and I'm transmitting from the car, but doesn't matter. Okay, so what's today's topic? Today's topic is editable content, which is an essential part of our architecture and of our products. And I will start with some brief introduction, with some history overview of content editing and online content editing in Unicorn, and about some goals we want to achieve with editable component content because we think we finally have it right, and we are ready to show you. And then Adam Sirovatka and Martin Farkas will actually show you the current editable component content and the way how it can be integrated into your UApps. And not just can, but should be, because editable component content should be an essential part of any use case we are developing starting now. Yeah, and I think that we will show you enough that you will believe to this idea because it's really great and it will improve our ability, especially in the user interface and user experience greatly. Well, so let's start the presentation and go to it. I hope that our open session will take something like 1 to 1.5 hours. Shouldn't be longer, but we will not fit in 30 minutes today. So be patient. I think there are pretty much nice demos, and the content is like heavy from beginning till the end. So there will be always something to watch, something new. So I promised you that I will start with the history. So where actually we always thought that the idea of running like local text editor and then sharing the content by sending emails to everybody in your mailbox and in your mail list is somehow stupid. You know it. And it's not just our idea. It's the whole world shows that it's like maybe it was something interesting 20 years ago, but today is totally obsolete. And everybody goes online, and all the content is shared directly when it's created, and you can cooperate on the creation, and you can work on it online. Nobody cares about local anymore because it's history. Yeah, but we had this idea even in 2000, and we started to develop a first version of how to create our like meeting minutes and portals and everything directly online. So the first version of our content editing, which was based on HTML and HTML editing capabilities of Internet Explorer, it used to be one of the browsers. Long-term dead. Nobody knows it now, but in the past, some people used it. So this was, I wanted to show you a screenshot, but even Happy, who has like a huge archive of what we did in the past, didn't have one. So it looks something like this, because nobody remembers how it looked like, but it was really like the Iron Age or even before. Yeah. And 2006, we introduced the first version of editation in a Java applet. And we switched the content from HTML because HTML doesn't have a proper structure. And it might be even editable by user, but you can't automate it. And when the content is created by human, it's hardly readable by machine. So it doesn't support well the cooperation. So we switched the content into XML. And as HTML doesn't support any visual XML editing, we introduced Java applet for XML for the editor. It looks something like this. Actually, you still might if you are lucky enough that you can run it, you can still find artifacts which are edited this way in the old system. Yeah, on my Mac, it's extremely hard to run Java anymore. So I haven't seen this for 2 years at last. Yeah. So, but still, the Java applet was some promising technology in 2006, but it died very quickly, because there were other technologies promising the ability of HTML and JavaScript, of how to directly edit the content and what is possible to do directly, quickly surpassed the ability of Java applets. Plus, there were a lot of security issues with Java applets. The same technology actually was Flash, and Flash is dead as well. Yeah, so all those technologies which are extended in some different way, the ability of the browser were replaced by the browser directly. So the first version which can come back to browser was version from 2010, which introduced another syntax, more human readable syntax called BB codes. And you can edit both in Java applet and again in some inline editor in HTML. Yeah, it looked like this, and still you can use it in the old system. But this was still somehow wrong, So we tried another try with the HTML component content, which was released 2015, but it's the same year when we started with the architecture. So it's quite good, but it's old from the beginning. It came too late because we found completely different approach to how the content should be structured and how it should be edited, and that's like component-based content. Because all the document formats and what we have in common text editors share a common big problem, that they have very weak structure. So the same output that you see on the screen can be created in 1,000 different ways, and even the edit components and the editors which are editing the document structure, like in Microsoft Word or in LibreOffice, it doesn't matter which one of them is that, are using many different approaches to the same paragraph or to the same bullet. So again, this is extremely hard to maintain. It's almost impossible that when you create such a content by the visual editor, that you will automate it after that with some automation. So those documents are like images. It's very difficult to integrate the information which is inside them with your information in the information system. It's almost impossible. Of course, you can generate them. Yeah, so when the machine makes the output, it's possible. But when the machine makes the output, then human comes into it, changes something, the machine stops understand it. Yeah, because of the weak structure of the documents, and all these formats share the same problem. Yeah. And so that means we need a strict structure, really component-based structure. Forget about HTML, forget about some internals, how browser renders the component. We need a clean grammar and clean structure of the content, which will be both human editable, even human readable as a source code. And on the other hand, it will be like perfectly automatable by scripts, by commands, by artificial intelligence, by anything else, and the same thing which you see on the screen will look the same way in the source code of the content, which is very essential feature of our editable component content. But it's not just editable component content, there's UI behind, so we will come to it. So another thing and another approach which is different is that those text editors always have like one editor that rules everything. The editor understands both the structure and the contents and can edit all the pieces which are within the content. So those editors became huge. They are hard to maintain. It's very difficult to add new features or to change something. Yeah, and so we have completely different approach. So each component, it's editable by itself. So each component as the element of which the content is constructed has an editable mode nice visual editor which allows users to edit it. It can be both inline or in a modal. I think Adam will show you in a demo. And but those editors are separated, and they are developed and maintained along with the component. You know, and the editable component content has just the editor of the structure. So it enables you to structure those components into sections. It enables you to add components, remove components, and to add some features, but most or almost all of those features are non-visual. So this enables us to add quickly new features. As you add new component, you can immediately add the way how to edit it. You don't need to change the editable component content. You don't need to redeploy the editor, release new version. The current version will do, and it will work with the new component nicely, even if it never heard about it. And that's another thing that, as you know, that UE5 supports dynamic component discovery and loading. So the same does editable component content. So you can dynamically add components that didn't exist at the moment you prepare the application you are editing, you know, because they are just in the component catalog, and at the moment you register it there, it can be used in all applications that are using editable component content. So another huge advantage and another way how to speed things up and how to proceed quickly further with business components and business functionality. And last but not least, as I said, nobody cares about like local editing and local storage anymore. So that the same is with online versus native. So you have to be able to edit your content online. Yeah, that's the essential and that's the mandatory part. If you have some offline editor or native editor, it's an additional feature, not the otherwise. Yeah. And our advantage is that we start to develop it this way from the beginning. We still even don't think that we need a local offline editor, because you know now I'm sitting on the dam of the pond and I'm talking to you with a camera. I'm sharing the content. Internet is everywhere. Forget offline. It's dead. Yeah, so we have to focus just on online. Yeah. So the biggest change and what we did in the history between this 2015 and 2017, it is that we switched the approach, because up till there, we had the same stupid approach as the other text editors. So we tried to develop one editor that will like maintain both the structure and both the content and all the components. And we are extending this editor with some new features, which was extremely hard to develop and extremely hard to maintain the backward compatibility, etc. But we completely switched it, and now we mostly maintain the components and extend the components. But we need to, and we are like separately maintaining the structure of the document and structure of the content and the way how you edit the structure. So the first version was 2017, and then we renamed it because the editable component content is like more precise name, and added new features because we want to achieve new goals, and I will come to that later. But one thing that has to be mentioned, that you know, editable component content, it's just I would say a natural successor and natural extension of UE5 itself, because as you all know, and I expect that the audience of this open session knows, that we have UE5 string as an essential part of our UE5 front-end library and of our architecture. You know, it seems that UE5 string is something like when you develop your JavaScript front-end code and you write these JS6 tags, which are, as you know, it's like a different syntax for JavaScript commands or JavaScript lines like create element and clone element, etc. Yeah. But UE5 string is different, you know, because UE5 string, it's a language itself. It's language which is meant for component-based content processing and rendering. And this language can be used both on server and on client, which is very important. Yeah. So you can download UE5 string to the client and then process it on the client with the processor of the local machine. So you like spare a lot of power on your servers, and you can render the content from it to HTML or to PDF or to any other outputs which are like plugged into the UE5 string processor. Yeah. So this is like a great feature, a great language. It's based on the JS6 syntax, of course, but it's really a language itself. And this language is purely component oriented. So every tag represents a component. Those components can be like leaf components, or they can be container components. So it means that inside of them they can be other components, and they are processed top to bottom, top down, and rendered. So U5 string itself is the engine which is behind editable component content, because this enables us dynamically on a client add components, remove components, change the structure, and then the browser knows that something changed, and it re-renders the complete page using the U5 string engine within the U5 library. Okay. The U5 string brings to ECC dynamic component discover, load, and render, as you already know. And last but not least, and that's what I'm always surprised when I'm like going through some architecture reviews, etc., that people are forgetting that this U5 string, it's a templating language. So they are still trying to add to U5 something like handlebars or another templating libraries from the old past times when we did HTML directly. But you know, there's no need for it, because U5 itself, U5 string itself, it's template library, and it's a powerful templating. Actually, is the more powerful templating library I know in the front-end side, which is rendered to browser. Yeah, so it has excellent templating features and automation, of course. And the default rendering is to HTML and JavaScript. It doesn't work without JavaScript. I don't need to mention that it's high performance. So even the page we are looking at now, it's rendered by U5 string on the client. It's no HTML stored on the server, even processed and developed on the server and generated on the server. This HTML, which we are looking at, was prepared by editable component content with the U5 string engine in the background. Yeah. So there's a nice course about U5 string if you are not aware about all the features. So I strongly advise you to go through it. The link here is working, so you can click on it. And there's a separate documentation for the engine and for the templating and everything. Yeah. So don't forget that behind ECC there's U5 string, and ECC is built on top of it and adds the ability to store the content. Adam will explain everything about that. Yeah. So I want to show you like three showcases what editable component content is good for. The first one is like plain component content editing. It's like this presentation, you know. You can just click edit here, yeah, and you can start editing it directly. You can change the contents, you know. You can update it here. I don't know what. For example, this is important, so let's do it important. Okay, so everybody knows this because everybody of you is using Bookit or Dockit or WebKit, where everywhere there is this editable component content. So this is clear, but this is not the end, you know, because we think that editable component content should be behind each road we are developing, because that's the essential way how you can like customize the road, even how you can develop the road, and how you can lay out the content on the page. And it brings you many features in the future. For example, that you can, for each AWIT you deploy, for each OBC you deploy, you can slightly change the roads or completely change the roads which are available for the user. So the product is still the same, but the customization of any screen which goes to customer is there if you use ECC. And that's why we should develop all those use cases in this way. So let's look at some examples. You know, if I open this, you will see how fast the internet on the pod is. It's a general ledger. Some of you might know this. This is the key use case which goes from the legacy Finman and which shows the state for, I think it's February. Yeah, it's February 2001. The state of the finance in Unicorn Solutions for February. A lot of components, you know, usually you don't need them all, but because this use case is like hard-coded, it's very difficult to add or remove those components or change the order according to needs of the company, or even like a specific user. Because, for example, when I'm looking at this, I might be looking for some table like this one, and I wanted to have it first, then, for example, girls from top management office Unicode solutions are looking at that. They may be looking for content which is far below, and it will be very useful for them if you can just take this component, pin it somewhere on the top, and to have it directly. But as it is a hard-coded use case, it's not possible, you know. So let's look at another example. There's business case in new Finman. It's made of components. There's a default report, but somehow it looks pretty much the same, you know, because there are nice new components that are responsible, where you can configure filters, and this is of course to test data, because Fin1 is not yet in production. It will be in April. So you can even copy the component and put it somewhere else. But if you want to restructure this page on the business case, there is no way how to do this, you know. And if you use ECC content, the situation changed completely. So I have an example of general ledger which was prepared by editable component content. That's it. Actually, this is Dockit. This is not Fin1, you know, because that's a common page. You can edit it, and this Dockit is populated by the components which are from Fin1, from the new Fin1. Yeah. And they are structured here in the way how I decided to structure them. Yeah, of course, because it's Dockit that everybody can change it. But imagine that this would be like the output for common users, and then there are some power users, some consultants which are implementing Fin1 to some company, and which will, with the management of the company, decide that, for example, we should change the order, and that the business case summary shouldn't be the first section, that we, for example, take this section and we will move it up. Yes, why not? We have revenues first. That's like a good approach. And for example, expenditures don't bother us, so we remove it completely. Gone. You know. And now you have completely new use case. You could add some other components from other applications here, you know. So not just in a portal or in some document-like screen where everybody expects it, because we've shown this on WebKit many times. But what I'm telling you, that each of our use cases should have this ability and should be able to be configurable like this way. The other thing, of course, is who has permissions to do it, because we definitely don't want any user to change anything in the system as he wants, only the things he has rights for it. But it's like with the content itself. So this adds us a huge opportunity how we can rethink the use cases and how we can work with use cases in our applications. And that's why it's essential that each of you understand how editable component content works, how it can be integrated, and how it can be used within application. And that's the end of my start. So let's sum my speech. So uuEditableComponentContent component content is starting now the default way how to compose components in any route of any UI app. Yeah, so we should do it, and we will even prepare for you better tools. I will mention them. So basically, anytime you are designing some screen, you should think in ECC. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if it's just user content creation, like documents with pages, or if it's like a use case like general ledger that I've shown you. And believe me, that guys are working on like changing even the default route, which is on the business case, that it won't be like hard coded, but it will use ECC to display the same components. So there will be another level of customization in each business territory as we would want to. Yeah. And of course, you can combine those two approaches. I didn't show this example because I will give room to Adam and Martin to show it. Yeah, so you will see it in the next couple of minutes. And what we are doing now, we are working on a basic business brick, a new business brick. It's like component or like ancestor to any application type, which will allow you very simply to integrate editable component content, structure content stored in object store, binary content that's a sibling component to editable component content for maintaining binary data, activities and any features from business territory. So it will bring another level in a developing, like starting from simple apps to like large ones, because those are typically features that are needed everywhere. But we will talk about this on some next open session, and we will show you when we have something, because we just started to work on it. But regardless of business break, you can start using ECC no applications now, and I am giving word and screen to Adam, so he can tell you and he can show you.
Okay, thank you, David, for great introduction. I think that everybody knows what is our goal, and let's see it in more detailed way. Okay, so when speaking about ECC, it is very important to say that, as David described, we have a need to have a need to create visual use cases, and these visual use cases may have, let's say, various scope. For example, when we are talking about like general ledger and business case, we know that we will probably need like the whole page for that. But then we may have another need, not just one page, but a business case which will show you, for example, monthly reports. And each month would require its own page. Or another example would be that you would like to send some issue to FLS or SLS, and not just to work with rich text, but with any editable component content. So what you will need would be just one section where to put anything, any component you need. And this is the reason why we have three main levels in editable component content. The basic one is section. It is really the atomic part of editable component content, the smallest one which can be edited by some user at a given time. This is made out of U5 components, which are powered the whole content by U5 string. That section can exist by itself, or it is possible to have it as a part of a bigger scope of page. Page has a list of sections. Also, with the new design, it has two panels. We will be speaking about that a bit later. And again, it can either be a separate page, if you know that, for example, in your application, you need just one use case with one page, or when you need more pages, well, it can be part of the whole document. And such document can either have a flat or hierarchical leveled structure. Just some examples from the existing EU apps. You know that Bookit allows you to level to nest pages within each other, while, for example, Docket has a flat structure of sheets within the document. That's really just a matter of business design, and it's up to you how you use it. So as I said, the main part we work with is section. It is already atomic unit, and it solves the concurrent access, and in the new generation, also by automatic lock-in. It means that once you start to work with any component within a given section, it is automatically locked on in the human interface side to you, and no one else can use it or edit it until you stop editing of that component. Another thing, and we will see it in a minute, is on-click editing. We know that many of you were not or are not very happy that when you want to edit something, you need to start editing the page, then you go to section, start editing the section, then you go to component, you hover on the component, see the pencil, you click on it, and after that you start the editation. And of course, this is not the goal. The goal is to have it on click and be as fast as possible. And that is what we have done with the new generation. Also, basically everything we are showing to you today is still work in progress, although it is integratable as it is. We still are working on features which are about to come in upcoming weeks and months. One of them is history, basic history support, and trash support. David was speaking about UEFI string. It is really an essential part of the way how we work with templating, how we work with the content itself in the section. And in the new generation, we will still be using UEFI string, but in the background on the server side, this UEFI string will be stored not as string itself, but as a object. Basically, the whole UEFI string will be composed as objects, nested objects with tags, with children, with properties. And the reason for that is that it will allow us in future to work, let's say, more efficiently and easily with the content of applications, especially by using scripts or other commands. The higher entities page. In the new generation, we also have prepared a component for easy integration of editable component content into your application. It is called UECC bricks page. Martin will be showing it later. And this page really represents a fully editable route. Either, as we said, it can be a simple separate object if you need just one page, or if your application needs more pages, well, you can have the full document. What is new compared to the old generation, and it's still in development as well, is that the page will be able to have two panels, the main one and the secondary one, sidebar, let's say. In the main panel, you should store really like what is the most important content you need to store, while the side panel can have, for example, a menu, or it can have some additional components, like, for example, some useful statistics or something like that. It is also possible to mark the whole pages or sections as read-only, so it means that common users in human interface will not be able to work with them, just to see them as they are. What is also in development right now is additional top, footer, and the bottom part of the page and panels, and also possibility for additional looking. So, for example, you will not be able to add a section before or after another section if it is defined that way by the authors of that use case of the route. If you would take a really detailed look at the structure of page component, you can see that there is really much more going on, and that is the reason is that we really want to support creation of robust visual use cases, visual routes when it is needed by either UApp developers or the content authors. So let's say happy day, the basic scenario is that you have page, it has content. In the main content, there is the main panel, and in its content, it's a list of sections. But as I said, you will be able to have main panel and side panel as well. Also, both page and panels will have top and bottom parts, bottom components. You will be, for example, able to use it really as a single section with, for example, top menu or copyright in the bottom of the page. And finally, the last level is document. This represents a fully editable document. You can also use it for basically, let's say, replacing the content of the whole user visual entry point with structure of pages, which, as we said, are basically UEFI routes. Either you will have it set that the pages would be in a flat structure, or you can have hierarchical as well. For this component, we don't have the visual component yet, but it is planned, of course, as well. And now something which is quite new, and I think that most of you have already somehow got in touch with it, maybe even if you're not thinking about it explicitly, and it's component catalog. I think that you know that in uuApps and U5 libraries, you had to switch to DevKit major version 4. And one of these reasons is that DevKit version 4 supports data structure for definition of your libraries and components, which are then, with the deployment of your app box, of your library, automatically uploaded to the center app library registry. Let's see how it works. So I have a demo application here. This application is now using the latest generation of editable component content, the one we are speaking about. And I will start the editing. As I promised, the editing is already on click. So you can see that just by clicking into a rich text, I'm already in the edit mode of that rich text, and the whole section was automatically logged for me. If I would be doing some other tasks, for example, I would create another section here. I would select some component. See some section, for example. Okay. Stop it here. Okay. See. I still can go from one component to the other, and you can see that dynamically the component I'm editing is very connected to the section where it is, and once I switch to editing of this rich text, the other section is automatically unlocked. So this should prevent you from multiple clicking for starting or stopping the editation. I was speaking about the DevKit 4 and about definition of your libraries and components. We can take a look at this example of ContentKit library, which is very well documented and specified for the component catalog. This is uup.json, a standard file in every application, every library project. So we can see some basic attributes for the whole library, the product, version, documentation, image array, and then the definitions of the libraries and components itself. For example, here, component block danger, it has some specific name. We can have tags, so it will make it, you would make it easier to search this component. What is the code of page in documentation, the whole description, which icon should be used in case you wouldn't be showing images, link URL to the image, and whether this component is by default searchable in the component catalog in editable component content. This is really useful once your components are meant to be in content. The other possibility is that there would be components that would be just for development purposes. In that case, we would use false in here. And once you use it and define it in uup.json, then when you build your app box, you would get several files on the app box, and the important one is the library descriptor JSON, and this is the final content of such file. And we can see that the things we defined in uup.json are now put in here. And once you send your library to your provider to be deployed to production, the provider would automatically register your components into the catalog, and they will instantly become searchable and usable in editable component content. So in this demo, for example, I would create a new section, select component, and I've prepared just some basic stencil here. It's called common components, and of course I could search for example, business card here, and I can see that I have found the business card. But let's say that it would be a good idea to have business card as a part of the common component stencil. And that's a new feature that component catalog with app library registry has prepared as well. Each application will be able to have its own catalog of stencils, and all of these stencils will be dynamically loaded from the center service of app library registry. This really gives us a huge opportunity to align the stencils and catalogs we have in all our applications, because currently you know that it differs. It's different in Bookit, it's different in Dockit, and it's very hard to maintain because all these definitions these days are stored within the application. They are built in, which is wrong. And this solution solves that problem. So as I said, I would like to add business card to this stencils. So I'm gonna go to Insomnia here, and I would ask, I would take ID of, okay, this is the automatic OIDC plugin, okay, thanks. I would take ID reference to business card component, which I'm able to find. And let's say that I would like to add it to this stencil. So I'm going to add it here. And now when I will reload this page, and open the catalog once again, see, I already have the business card right away in this stencil. So what you can do or need to do right now in your U5 libraries is to specify attributes of your library and components. What I was showing here was the higher level of designing or specifying the whole stencil or even the whole catalog. The catalog is a list of stencils, so for this catalog of this example, we have selected 3 stencils. While selecting, specifying and deploying these definitions of library and components is now fully automatic with your app boxes when you send them to production. The stencil and catalog, which are blue here on this picture on purpose, they are not yet finished. We are still working on these processes, and they will be under revision. It won't be possible for anybody like to let's say change some stencils in productions or the whole catalogs, but they will of course be suggested, created by application vendors, but there will be an authority which will revise them and then set them to production. So that is all from my side for now, and now I am passing the word to Martin Farkas, who will show you how to integrate it into your application.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Adam, for introduction of ECC functionalities. My goal is to show you how you can integrate uuECC to your application. And my topic will consist from a short introduction, what are ECC libraries, and 3 examples. In first example, I would like to show you that it is really easy to integrate basic default behavior of ECC to your application, and it takes you only 10 minutes, maybe 5 if you are quick. Second example will show you how you can wrap default behavior of ECC by your business logic and use it in some more advanced business scenarios. And third example will show you our reference implementation of ECC customization in product view shapes that should be used on projects as a source of good practices, how to do things. Okay, so some theory about ECC. ECC consists from 2 libraries. First is for server, and it holds implementation of commands, application logic, and data access objects. And second library is front-end library, and it holds non-visual logic in form of hooks and visual components that you can use to edit dynamic content. Now, first example, how to quickly integrate ECC to your application. First, you need to add server library to your server of your sub-application. It means you need to add library to package.json as dependency. You need to register validation matchers, custom matchers of ECC library, because ECC library is working, for example, with UU5 object. It is the serial that version of UU5 string. And this registration is really easy. You need to add only one line of source code to your application. Then you need to map commands of ECC to your application profiles. And last point is you need to add configuration of ECC schemas to your persistence configuration, because ECC will work in your server and it will store all ECC data directly to object store of your application. So you have full control over data of ECC. In front end of your application, you need to only add ECC front-end library, and it's all. Then you can use all components from ECC library, add them to your routes, and user can use ECC components that are by default able to communicate with default ECC commands without some configuration. I prepared such integration. So I generated UU demo application by devkit, and I added ECC as shown on slide before. So you can see I have one route. It is called page list because in future I would like to add the overview of previously created pages. But now I am only able to create new ECC page. So I will click on button. Page is created on the server, and I am redirected to route page detail. And here I have ID of newly created page. It is empty now because I don't use some template, but I can switch to edit mode, add new section, select component, and here is stencil previously created by Adam. So you can see it is immediately propagated to all ECC instances in every application if you use a default catalog. But I would like to use business card, so I can use directly the stencil business card. Business card is inserted. I can add some text, for example, and everything is now stored in object store of my demo application. I can refresh page, and you will see everything is loaded and shown. And it is working. And what happened, or what it means to create such simple application. In front-end part of my application, now I am talking about use case of page creation. So it is this one. You need to add some button to page. It is common UU5 button. And I am using common UU5 hook use call. And this hook is used to call server command page create. It is default command of ECC. So I only integrated ECC in server. It's all. There is no custom line of source code. and everything is working, and page is stored in object store of my application. Second use case, edit page. It is this one where I can edit page. It is new row, page detail. I am using hook from ECC library called usePage. Everything what I need for this hook is ID of page, and ID, as you could see, is sent as parameter of the row page detail. Hook is able to load page by command page get. Again, all these commands are default commands of ECC. I don't need to write them. Everything is prepared for me. And hook returns page data object. It holds data about page, state, if it is loading data, or if there is some error because I don't have internet connection, etc. And page detail itself consists from 3 components. Panel main edit provider, it is non-visual component that is responsible to allow communication between button and page itself. Button, I think it is this edit button. You can place this edit button everywhere you need, for example, to header, footer, or to action list of component wrapper as you need. And when you click on the button, it communicates through provider with page, and the page is switched to edit mode. The data for page are in page data object. So everything what you need is to send page data object to page, and it's all. Everything from button below is managed by ECC component page. So I can add new sections, I can add components to sections, and page is communicating with server with default commands of ECC, and page is created and persisted in my application. So you can see it is really easy to add ECC to your application. I think 10 minutes is enough. Now, some example of customization. Again, some theory, then example. We have application elementary management, and in elementary management, we have key task. Key task has dynamic part where you need to explain and describe what the employee should do, what is goal of the key task. So we would like to edit this dynamic content of key task by ECC. What you need to do, again, you need to add server library to your server and front-end library to your front-end application. I think it is mostly same as before, but now you don't need to map profiles. Oh, it's mistake. You don't need to map profiles of your application to ECC commands because you don't use ECC commands. You have own commands for key task management, for example, and you are calling ECC application business logic from your commands. And it is same in front end. In front end part, you have own components, visual components for key task that wrap ECC components. And ECC components aren't directly communicating with ECC commands. They are communicating with components of elementary management, and these components communicates with server. So you can see both server logic and front-end logic are wrapped by custom logic of elementary management application. Okay. And now live demo of Okay, I'm sorry for interruption. And now I am in production business territory of our education family, and I created folder uuECC. And now I am creating key task in elementary management application. So I key task, for example, 2, and key task is created. And as you can see, this is OBC artifact. Now I am redirected to key task detail route of elementary management application. And this is similar to use case shown in my simple demo application, but now there is no empty page created, but this page is created with some predefined components that should be on every key task detail. There is our edit button. When I switch to edit, you can see I can add some custom content to I can add some custom content to description of key task. There is older version of component catalog, but we are preparing migration to new version as shown by Adam. And I can change okay. And yeah, as you can see, I can edit these sections because they are read-only. The users shouldn't be allowed to remove these sections or change their behavior. They, of course, shouldn't be able to add section before this content, but this support is in progress. uuECC is preparing support for this. But when I stop editing, everything is stored. And again, dynamic content is stored in object store of elementary management application. They have full control over it, and they have wrap and customize business logic of ECC by business logic of elementary management. Okay, so it is demo. And how it is done. Again, first use case of key task creation. You could see there was some form, key task create form in business territory. And when I submit the form, again, some call is some command is called, but now I don't call directly page create command because elementary management does not have such command, but it calls command key task create, command of elementary management application. Business logic of elementary management then creates page, and page is created by business logic of ECC. I don't need to write nothing for it. I only need to call create method of business of ECC application logic and only say, hey, I need to create new page with some default template. And that data access object of ECC creates ECC page document in ECC page schema for you and returns the ID. The ID is stored in key task document. So you can see in object store, there is a relation between key task and ECC page. So key task know what is his page. And when you load key task for detail page, you can load the key task with page. It is shown on second diagram. So this is use case where you need to show key task and edit it. It is very similar to my simple demo application. I need to use edit provider, some edit button, and page component. But now I can wrap it, for example, by some elementary management components if I need. And first I need to load key task. So I am using custom hook, use key task from elementary management application. This hook is able to call command key task load. This command loads key task from object store. And if I need, it is able to load related page and return everything in one response. Then I need hook use page from ECC library. This hook is used for page editation because when I put initially loaded page to component page, this page is connected with this hook and then is able to call commands on server. But again, it doesn't call default commands of ECC. It calls my wrappers of ECC logic. Why? Because when user, for example, wants to add new section, first I need to check if key task isn't in final state, because when key task is in final state, I don't want to allow users add some new content. Another business rule is key task. I need access to key task because maybe I am only reader and I shouldn't be allowed to add new section, or I am writer and I should be allowed to write new content to key task. So we need to check rights, and key task has artifact has access rights controlled by related artifact, OBC. So it is something above the ECC. It is my custom logic in elementary management. So I need to wrap all ECC commands and call this logic from front end. Third example is our reference implementation of ECC customization. Similar to key task, we have entity hexagon in our shapes library, and I can create a hexagon. Sorry, I switched to, okay. I can't use space in presentation mode. My hexagon code and O. Similar to key task, I can choose location where my key task is created. This location is in business territory. And now hexagon is created. And I am redirected to polygons, application of uuShapes. And here it is very similar to key task. There is some predefined content of my hexagon detail. And I should be able to edit it. But probably I don't have access rights to edit the hexagon. So I'm sorry, there is some bug, but there should be edit button and I should be able to switch to edit mode. And again, everything below the header of the road is managed by ECC. So we will fix this small bug, and implementation of such customization can be found in uuShapes documentation. So when I open, for example, an application model of uuShapes, so I would like to show you where you can find the hexagon implementation and use it as a source for your use cases. So in application model, you need to go in polygons sub-application, and for server part, there are commands related to hexagon. There is, for example, command hexagon create. So there is design where you can find how the ECC is used. Or you can go directly to source code of command and check how it is implemented. And for content part, you can find the design of hexagon detail road in, oh, sorry, I have to choose where polygons, road list, and there is hexagon detail. So I think everything what you need to start integrate ECC to your application is prepared for you. But I should mention ECC of third generation is still in development. Current version is 0.7, so it is not in final state. Some functionalities related to document, for example, aren't ready for production usage. But I think functionality related to section or page is in good condition, and you can at least try to integrate this functionality to your applications and prepare it for release of version 1, the production release of ECC. So it is all from me. Thank you. And I would like to give word back to Adam and summarize today's open session.
Thank you, Martin. So let's sum it up. So as we said, we believe that the new generation we were showing is basically the future of human interface, and it is now the default way of how you should compose components in any route of any new application of the architecture. The main usages were pretty in detail described by David. You can use it for just plain content editing. You can use it for use case composition as well, or you can just combine both approaches within one route. The main levels that we have are document, page, panel, and section. Page and section are ready to be used and integrated. Document is ready in the uuP, the server library side, and visual components will be added soon as well. We saw the new component catalog, and it's really now up to you as vendors and creators of U5 libraries and components to well specify your components. You just need to do it just for one time. Once you create definition of your component, it can basically stay that way for future. So it's really just one-time job when you have a new component to specify it in uuP.json. It is also important to say that there is now a new key task to really go through all the components, stencils, and catalogs that we have. There is also now new team in Ukraine, which will be focused just on this task and ready to go through all the components and ensure that they are not just well described, documented, so they will be nicely shown in the catalog, but to test them as well, to test how their edit mode works, whether it's fine, whether it's fine with all standards. And the goal of this really is to have first-class editing of content. Martin showed you the integration, and it's very true that it can be done within 10 minutes. You need to integrate uuAppLib and u5lib, which is even easier. And the reference integration is in uShapes. So that's for the summary, and let's go through the questions. And
we have two questions. First is about improvement of on-click editing in third generation. If you could somehow summarize what will be improved.
Yeah. The thing is that, as we said, in the current applications, in Bookit, Dockit, these ones which are already in production, we still have the old generation. They are quite similar, but for example, Bookit does not have this new feature yet. We will need to migrate the old dynamic component content to the new editable component content. I will just show briefly the editing in the new generation for one more time. Basically, in most cases, you really won't need to go through many start and stop editing buttons. I will show it here. The only button basically anybody should need when he or she wants to update some existing content is to start the editing of the page itself. And you can see that just by clicking here throughout the sections and components, I'm going directly to their editing. I don't need to log the section. I don't need to stop editing of the component. Here, I can just go through them. Here, I have some embedded text. Let's put some valid data, for example, JSON here, and go to another component and section again. You can see that it was saved, and it's done. It's very fast. And of course, it will be necessary to revise all the components that we have and make sure that they will be ready for this new generation, and they will really have the flawless editing, just as these basic components have already. And this is the goal. For the new applications, it's clear. It's the new this generation with on-click editing. For the existing applications, well, please give us some time. Like for Bookit, Dockit, and WebKit, there is a huge amount of very important data, and the data structures on the server are not backward compatible because in the old generation we were storing u5 string really as a string. In the new generation we are storing objects because we know that it will have broader possibilities and functionality for better handling the data when we need it. So it will require some a severe migration, and we just really need to have some time to prepare these migrations. And as soon as it is possible, I will be really glad when the new generation will be replaced everywhere in all applications, and we will get rid of the old generation with so many stop and start edit buttons. I saw the question that there is still the pencil button on hover. Yes, there might be some still buttons. It's just that it's not always necessary to use them. It's really like up to the creators whether they will start editing directly or click on the pencil button. Both will be possible. Of course, on-click editing is the main one, but for example, on mobile phones, there we will be probably show the pencil buttons more often because it may not be clear on a mobile phone when you don't have the hover feature. You can't like go through your mouse or finger just across the component. So we wouldn't be able to hover to add the border dynamically to the components. So on mobile phones we will probably show the pencils still, so it will be noticeable for users that they can start editing. Okay, so that was the first question. Do we have another one?
Yes, second and last question is if it would be possible to save some components as user context. For example, I am using some specific components often in bookit or dockit. So it would be great to store it as favorite, for example, per AVIT application or globally.
Okay, I think I understand. This new component catalog is just the first version. It replaces the old catalog, which you can still see in bookit or dockit, and will be replaced. Right now, this first version, as I showed you, enables vendors to specify the stencils and the catalogs dynamically by specific structures and to use the interface of UApp library registry. In the roadmap of this component catalog, this new one, there are already several requests exactly for I think was questioned or asked, and it means that it will be possible to search and dynamically add another available stencils to your catalog, and it will be either stored to the application. For example, it will be stored on the book level. So you know that when you have some book which is about an application model, then in that case you would have, for example, all stencils regarding to app model kit. So either we will store it on book, AVIT level, for example, or sub-application, or another option would be that it will be personalized completely, and it would be stored within the user preference property. So it should be possible in future for every user to have different set of catalogs of stencils in this model window, just as the user wants to. So I hope that I answered that. Or Martin, do you think that there's something more to add with like context or something?
No, I think it it is a good answer. So it was last question. So thank you for your attention, and I hope it was interesting for you.
Yeah, thank you for the attention, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.